Hello and welcome to TSL Talk for round 14. Today we're joined by TSL Talk debutant and AFL Tasmania General Manager Scott Wade. Scott, thanks very much for joining us.
No problems, Brett. Pleasure.
The reserves issues created a lot of division between AFL Tasmania and the clubs. Why is AFL Tas so adamant that the push ahead with the seniors and Colts is the best way to go and no reserves when the clubs are so against it?
Well, there's a combination of reasons, but the main reasons, the core reasons, are that the establishment of the State League was only ever 2 teams per club. It was never 3 teams per club. The option was given to the clubs to field a 3rd or 4th or 5th, teams, 5 teams out to the side of the State League, but the actual State League has only ever been 2 teams. So and that's for a combination of reasons. Probably the main ones is about the travelling of players around the state. So particularly for the 2 North West Coast clubs who have to travel outside their region 7 times a year, and obviously the Launceston clubs have to do a fair amount of travelling as well. So the 3rd team is not a bigger impact on the southern clubs as it is the 5 northern clubs. So we're committed to the plan. We think 2 teams can work, and then the other core reason is that provides another 220 players to play at the level of footy below, so in the NTFL, the SFL and the NTFA, and we believe that's really important that the State League clubs take the most talented players, and then when you're not quite good enough to be a regular senior player, then you should filter back into the levels of footy below. So we believe in our plan, we believe it's right, and we understand the significance of the change, but we're going to stick to our plan.
Is the matter now finally resolved, or is it going to smoulder on?
Was resolved from our point of view, yep. So for the balance of this licence agreement, which is obviously 2011, 12 and 13 seasons, so for the next 3 seasons after this one, as far as we're concerned, it won't be an issue. But we understand it's still an issue for some clubs, but it's certainly not an issue for all clubs. The great majority of clubs are already moving forward and moving on with planning for 2011. So we know there are 1 or 2 clubs who are still, it's a sticking point for 1 or 2 other clubs.
Yeah. In the past month, we've seen Tasmania win the Under-18s Division 2 title at the National Championships. The Under-16s are playing off for the title on Saturday, but we saw the state team smashed by Queensland not so long ago. Does this illustrate that the talent is there, but we're not harnessing it properly, or we're losing too many of our best players to other state leagues around Australia?
No, I certainly think it suggests that we've got some work to do to harness our talent and to retain our talent. So, as you rightly point out, on a national scale, our 16s and 18s are proving they've got enough talent. Of course, we lose our best talent to the AFL, as every state does. But we've got some work to do to keep building the quality of the State League on and off the field. So, we don't really believe that the state game was a true reflection of where we're at. It was a terrible game of footy and a terrible day for the Tassie boys, but we think we're better than that. So perhaps we'll wait and see what the result is next year.
Is the TSL relying on a financial return from AFL games played in Tasmania for it to be competitive with other state league competitions?
No, not relying on it. I think it's a future opportunity. I think the AFL product in Tasmania provides a great opportunity for all levels of footy to benefit, particularly the state league clubs. So if we can establish a model in collaboration with the state government and the AFL and the venue operators, or we can establish a model whereby some revenue drifts out of the AFL product back into local community footy, that'll be a great thing for Tasmania footy. That'll be really the catalyst to enable us to invest heavily in the clubs and in competitions below the state league and to actually grow the game.
Was local football sold short by the last Hawthorn Tasmanian government contract?
I don't think local footy was ready to, I guess, put a proposal on the table and put its point of view. I think that at that stage we still had the Devils in the VFL, and I guess there was no united approach to anything in Tasmanian football. It was about AFL Tasmania managing the Devils and the talent pathway, and then no real cooperation between the NTFL, the NTFA, and the SFL. But that's a far different environment now. We've actually got, we're pretty close to getting everyone on the same page, everyone heading in the same direction. And I think the leadership of the Tasmanian Football Council, who's the NTFL, the NTFA and the SFL, has been significant towards all of that. So, I think we're in a good spot. Tassie, to put a proposal on the table and for us to make sure that the next AFL deal provides great value back to the Tasmanian footy community at all levels.
How confident are you there will be AFL games played at Bellerive in the near future, possibly as soon as 2012?
Well, we'd be pretty confident. Clearly, the plan is for to secure Hawthorn for another term at Aurora Stadium, and that's the priority. And making sure that Aurora Stadium retains its 4 games as a minimum is the highest priority. And once that's out of the road, which we'd like to think that that's not too far away, then the opportunity to open up the AFL product from 2012 to another club or a group of clubs get more games in the state of Tasmania, provided the right financial models in place. We think that's an exciting prospect. So we'd be quite confident that within the next 3 or 4 years, that maybe even 2 or 3 years, that the state of Tasmania could have up to 8 games of footy AFL games of footy being played in Tassie. So that'd be a great thing, we think.
We've seen this week the issue with Ben Cousins in Melbourne, obviously, but is the use of caffeine tablets and sleeping tablets an issue at TSL level?
Well, look, not to my knowledge, but the use of caffeine tablets and uppers, so to speak, has been around footy for a long time. But the sleeping tablets, I doubt that there's much of that in local community footy or state league football. I guess the difference between the AFL and levels below the AFL is after a game the players can have a few beers and a few wines and a few drinks, and that tends to act as a sleeping tablet, Brett. But in the AFL system, I can understand players get an enormous high during the game, and particularly a lot of night footy, and they probably don't. It's midnight before they probably settle down, and then players, if they lose a day in rehab, so to speak, and if they're tired for 24 hours and can't sleep, then it does set their rehabilitation back. So it's a really complex and difficult issue, but it was a really another disappointing moment in the AFL in terms of what happens to the players, and I guess Ben's been involved in a few of those over the years. So it was. But I think they'll move on pretty quickly.
Yep. Now we get your tips for round 14. We've got Burnie taking on Launceston at West Park. Burnie's probably been one of the great stories of the TSL season, and Launceston flying second on the ladder. Who's your tip there?
Yeah, I think Launceston. I think from all reports and from what I've seen, Launceston look like they're the second best team in the competition. So I think they'll be too strong for Burnie.
Yeah, probably a week ago, down at Lauderdale probably wasn't much of a challenge, but they proved their doubters wrong with a win over North Hobart last week. And this week they take on North Launceston, who have hit a bit of a slump in the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
the 2 Bombers playing at Lauderdale, so that'll be an interesting clash. It's going to be a tight one, this one. Again, I think if North Launceston should win the game, but Lauderdale and a former great teammate of mine, Darren Winter, they're going on quite nicely, Lauderdale. So it'll be a close contest. I'll pick the Bombers by 10 points. Which one? I think I'll pick the Lauderdale Bombers by 10 points. There you
go. South Lonnie taking on Glenorchy Youngtown. South Lonnie a chance to win their second wooden spoon in a row. Is that a concern at all for AFL Taz?
No, not really, because South Launceston's doing a wonderful job off the field in a structural sense. Had a new president this year, Ian Ganninan, and they've done a lot of good work off the field. Dale Chugg knows what he's doing. There's clear evidence that there's a plan in place at South Launceston, so we're not worried about that at all. In South Launceston, I think once they build their list and build their group, that they'll be strong for quite a long time. They've got a lot of great, really good junior players. So no one likes to finish on the bottom, but Glenorchy should be too strong for South Launceston, but they're on the right track, the Bulldogs.
North Hobart and Hobart at North Hobart Oval.
Well, a bit of a crunch game, this one. Really, certainly a crunch game for both teams. I guess the reality is if Hobart lose this one, they're probably nearly shot, particularly if Glenorchy beat South Launceston. So it's a crunch. It's a finals game for Hobart. And North Hobart have been amazing. I saw them early in the year, and they looked like they're going to be one of the real gun teams in the competition, but they terribly inconsistent. So I'm going to pick the Tigers.
And definitely the match of the round, first versus third, undefeated Clarence at home to Devonport.
Yeah, Clarence were great last week with a lot of injuries, and it was a really good contest and a great crowd at Belrive Oval last Saturday. So, look, I think Clarence will be too strong, but if Devonport are genuine contenders, this is the type of game they might win.
All right, Scott, well, thanks very much for joining us on TSL Talk. And remember, for all your previews and stories, pick up your copy of the Mercury or go to the Mercury online.